Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, sixth grade social studies Bulldogs. What I wanted to do real quick, hopefully I'm going to kind of hit on just 5 points, is make sure that you are ready for your test. Remember, we're going to do a Nearpod on Tuesday, and I have some other little ed puzzle activities that I'm going to show you how to activate or use that are nice little review movies that have questions embedded in them. And then I also have a Schoology quiz that you're going to get to take over and over and over again. My suggestion is you take it as many times as you need to get 100, and then you take it another time while you're eating breakfast Thursday morning before the test. So there's 2 objectives that are on this test. One is basically, where are things located? Like, what's an island? Where's the Bahamas? Where's the Gulf of Mexico? And then the second thing that's tested on this objective that's tested on this test is what are people like? How do people kind of impact the environment, or why are people where they are? How do they live, or where do they live where they are? And those 2 things are the only 2 things that are really technically tested. I have given you extra vocabulary help, Quizlet help, words that are going to be on there like migrate, population density, overpopulation, limited natural resources. Those are some of the key words that if I say those, you need to know what those are. So briefly, let's talk about, why do people live where they live? Well, people live where they live because of a lot of different factors. A lot of them are jobs. A lot of them are weather. Okay, so that's why people aren't living up in the Arctic or in Antarctica. And a lot of times it comes down to some of your family, where your family lives. And along the coast is mostly where most people live. That's because that's where ports are for shipping and transportation. And when the settlers came over from Europe, that's mostly where they settled. They started there. So it just became the most heavily populated areas first, and they've kind of stayed that way. Okay. Weather is probably one of the largest factors in why people live along a coast. Is it's usually got more mild or moderate weather. We are more susceptible to things like hurricanes, though. As we know right now, we've got a big tropical depression and lots of rain coming our way. So there's the good, and then there's the bad. Let's see. If there were a lack of natural resources in an area, the weather changed here in Houston, spring area, and it dried up, there were no more trees. A scarcity for fresh water. Our lakes and rivers and ponds and aquifers dried up. What would we do? Would we just start drinking bottled water all the time? I mean, it could, but it's going to be very expensive. But we'd probably migrate. We would probably move to a region that could provide us with the natural resources we need to sustain our life, okay? So just remember that you're not just going to sit there and starve to death. You're going to move. You and your family are going to figure it out, and you're going to move. Remember that the Bahamas are islands, okay? Florida is a peninsula. The difference between a river and an ocean, okay? Gulf of Mexico is part of the ocean, but it is a gulf, okay? Make sure you know what a population density map looks like. We've had them up in the room. We've talked about them. They're maps of places, like any place. And it's really dark areas. And the darker areas that get larger, those are the more dense areas, okay? So population density maps are going to represent how many people are within that given area that's measurable. They can measure that, okay? That's important when we do our 2020 census, why we try to account for everybody, because we really want to know where everybody is. Difference between urban and rural. Rural are villages, right? Urban are urban centers, towers, buildings. You've got your hospitals. You've got strong infrastructure. Remember, infrastructure is our roads and our freeways and our hospitals and our schools, everything we need to make sure our large population is being taken care of. Let's see. Make sure you understand what it's like in an urban center, okay? That we have these tall buildings, that it's crowded, that potentially there's a lot more pollution because we have more cars. Think of New York City as an urban center. Think of Spring, Texas as urban, but not necessarily an urban center. Houston would be our urban center, okay? What are natural borders in really all over the world? Well, mountain ranges, rivers, even oceans are natural borders. There's very few countries, Turkey is one of them, that is split in half by a natural border, a mountain range, a body of water, a strait of water, any of those types of things. And so think about going, if you've ever traveled outside of Texas, or even from one area in Texas to another, you can go over a river and then you're kind of almost in another county sometimes. Well, that's because that's the natural border. So when the people started deciding, well, this land's for this area, and this land's for this town, and this land's for this town, they would say, oh, it's go up to the river. When it stops at the river, that's the end of the town. Well, they use that, and they still use that. It's why the United States stops at the Atlantic and Pacific Ocean, because when you go over the ocean, you go into other countries. Okay, that's about all I have for the test. I think if you review, you watch this movie a few times and kind of make sure you understand the words that I am using, you should do just fine on the test. If you don't study, you might struggle. But if you study, you will do pretty well on that test. I guarantee you. Okay? I've given you lots of opportunities to study. I will not be here on Wednesday. I'm at a assessment training for the district to help put together our tests. And so you will have a sub. Make sure you use that time to study and review. And today in class on Tuesday, we will be reviewing. We'll come in on Thursday. We will get a 5-minute quick little pop-up review if we need to. We'll take the test, which won't take all period. And then we will start with Freedom Week. And we have kind of a really cool activity on studying a little bit about the United States and freedom, which is now part of 6th grade and actually all lessons. It's actually part of a House bill that was passed in Texas that everybody in every grade level study about the freedoms of the United States and some of the actual 7th grade TEKs. And so we're going to do a little project with that we'll be due next week, a level up project. So you'll have lots of opportunities to increase your grade into mastery of that assignment. Okay, so thank you very much. And don't forget, you need something to write with and your computer charged on Thursday.